Are you feeling like maybe, just maybe, you can finally take an exhale? Are you feeling like something's on the horizon, but you can't quite tell what it is yet? Maybe there's a little tension, a little pull between what you know you need to do and what you want to do. And it might be feeling like a karmic or destiny level. Are you feeling flashes of excitement about something in the future that could just be absolutely amazing or beautiful? I hope so. Hi, this is Astrology Intuition with Amy Lynn. I'm here to bring you the astrology forecast between the new moons and the full moons. So every 2 weeks, I'm here to give you a lay of the land, to give you some cosmic guidance of the energy weather that we're working through. I come at this through the lens of growth and transformation. My background is as a psychotherapist, so you'll hear that a lot in what I'm talking about. I generally take the approach that the more you can detach from ego, from pain, from your own personal story, and understand that you are just a receptive, empathic human with intuitive downloads from the cosmos at all times, so many things can be explained by the energy weather and what's happening in our solar system. And then what we do as humans, sweet little psychologically intense humans, is we make everything personal. So, my invitation to you is to get to know the transits better, understand what's happening so that you can understand what part is actually you and what part is just space weather. How my podcast is set up is that I will give you an overview of the energies, like a kind of broad, a higher vantage point, looking out at what the energies are going to feel like, the kind of quality of time, the texture of the cosmos here on the earth right now. And then from there, I'll go deeper into some really interesting ways to work with the lunar cycle, such as the lunar manifestation cycle, where you can work in these 27-month periods to really use the energies and the placements in your chart to understand where to be focusing and how you can manifest from that place. Then I will walk you through the chart hotspots. So, this part of the podcast will be when you actually have your birth chart, and you can look at where, by degree and zodiac placement, these transits, these aspects are happening to your chart. And then at the very end, I'll go through the timeline, the week by week, day by day, biggest energies, kind of focusing on um, the timing. So there's like a feel of the energy, there's a where it's working with you personally, and then there's a when. So there's a lot to fit into this podcast, but I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet because we were talking about the full moon in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius energy just wants to get out there, have fun, don't take things so seriously. And so I'm going to try to match that with my energy for the podcast today. If you would like to work with me, I will be mentioning some things at the end of the podcast. There's links in the show notes to both my planner, which you can get on Amazon. It's quarterly. The new one for the quarter 3 starting July 1st is coming out soon, but it's not too late to grab the quarter 2 because, for one thing, there's a permanent reference guide at the back that works as a great tool for astrology, but also we still have a full month left in that planner. And you can really look back and understand the energies that were happening in April and May. And that's a great way to learn astrology. And honestly, what June is all about is kind of integrating the intensity. We've had so much intensity in April, especially, and in May. And now it's time to kind of look out at what just happened and what it might mean, what's shifting in us. And that's kind of the vibe of June. So I'll put some notes about in the show notes, some reading information with me as well. I did want to read you the page. So in my planner, I always have a monthly page ahead of each month, just giving you the overview of the month. And because this full moon is happening just by chance on the very last day of May, May 31st, 2026, it gives us this like end of the month punctuation. And now we have the new month. So usually in the podcast, I'm just talking about 2 weeks, but because we're just at the timing of the end of the month, I'm going to give you my little June preview that's from the planner. And it's good. I'm looking forward to June. So I want to share this whole month with you. The end does get there's a little more going on at the end of June, but especially the beginning, the middle of June, we're going to be in a really good place personally. So June unfolds in two distinct movements. It's like a breath out and then a breath in. Make them both intentional. The first half of the month carries a quiet, steady momentum. Many of the insights and awakenings from earlier in the year, which was so much, they're still kind of trickling in, these begin finding form. There's a growing sense that life is organizing itself around what is becoming true, a deeper truth in you. This is a steadier chapter, one that supports manifestation in grounded, meaningful ways. Let yourself feel the satisfaction here. There is space for joy. Take time to enjoy early summer. Actually, the title of June in my planner is Joy is part of the story too. The energy does begin to shift. I'm going to get into that in the next podcast episode, more specifically when we have the new moon in Gemini on June 14th. But as the solstice arrives at the end of the month and the sun enters Cancer, the tone softens for just a moment, deepening, then attention turns towards security and nourishment. Intuition picks up. The first quarter moon on June 21st, at the very beginning of Libra, reactivates that Aries 0 degree point that every astrologer has been talking about nonstop all year. That goes back to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that happened there on February 20th that we're still sorting out. We're going to be pulled back into inertia from eclipse season. That's really starting to happen even now, a little bit with a squaring of the nodes that's going on. We'll get into that in a second. Stay close to your body. You know how to regulate, how to soften, how to return to center. Let's get into something really specific and interesting and I think pretty exciting about this particular full moon. I'm actually going to share my screen with you and pull up. I actually took the time to make graphics so that you can see and follow along what we have going on here. So here's the chart of the full moon. This is pulled to where I am in Colorado. So the rising line is going to look different based on where you are. But I've called out here where the moon is in Sagittarius, 9 degrees, 56 minutes, where the sun is in Gemini. Look at you just hanging out with Uranus down here. So one thing, and this doesn't show in the chart, I don't have the fixed stars pulled in, but the moon in Sagittarius is exactly conjunct the fixed star Antares. And I want to tell you about Antares because you might not know. Antares is one of the royal stars. It's a fixed star. It takes about a human lifetime to move through one sign. So it's a rare thing that they move zodiac signs. Antares is known as the Watcher of the West. So there's four royal stars, and each has a direction that it's sort of responsible for holding the energy there. And Antares, as the guardian of the West, has to do with the horizon line, where we're going, setting out on the path, even kind of sunset energy. It also shows you a feeling of looking back at the road that you've already traveled and realizing you're stronger than you think. I find that fascinating, given that we're almost everybody I know had big stuff happen in April and then kind of shakeouts of that happening in May. And it probably is something you can look back in that same Antares way and see, oh, yeah, I got through that. Like I got through that. That's the kind of exhale we're talking about in the beginning of June. And it's not because this has been easy, but it's because you've kept going. So there's something this full moon that's about keep going, keep your light, keep your focus, keep your motivation, keep going. You've adapted, you've learned, you've kept your heart engaged even through the hard parts. Antares reminds us that wisdom isn't found at the beginning of the journey. It's found by continuing the journey. You know, speaking of continuing the journey, last time I recorded this podcast, it was the day of my oldest son's graduation, and I shared that with you. What I didn't tell you is that he's a double Sagittarius, and this full moon is happening exact his sun and his moon in his chart. And it's just this awesome moment of full moon completion, of looking out the horizon of where you're going, looking back at where you've come from, kind of exhaling after the hard work. So that's just kind of a sweet, you know, 2 weeks, like he graduated on the new moon in Taurus, and then now 2 weeks later, he's actually leaving for an international trip for the first time alone with his friends. It's going to be amazing. So that is perfect Sag energy and Antares energy working with this full moon, which is a moment of completion, graduation, release, getting to the next step. So I want to talk about the symbolism of the West, since Antares is the guardian of the West or the watcher of the West. In addition to sunset energy, it also can be endings, maturity, harvest would be another one. Wisdom gained through experience. So not like intelligence, but like wisdom. And it's a place where the hero returns from the journey. So if you take the hero's journey kind of archetypal cycle, this is where the hero returns. The East is where things begin. The West is where we discover if the journey meant anything. And there's simply something really Sagittarian about that. And Taurus is not asking, can you begin? It's asking, can you keep going? And where do you want to go? Can you stay devoted? Can you stay motivated? We can also look back at the strength we've had. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's the kind of strength that comes from getting up in the morning and doing your day. Um, doing the mundane tasks. So Gemini, is where the sun is right now, and Gemini shines a light on what our daily lives are, where we go in our day, where our neighborhood is, what our locality is, the people around us on our day-to-day basis. And there's this way that sticking with it, like a stick-to-itiveness, is very is a strength. Continuing to trust that if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, the future will take shape and you will land in the future that's aligned with your truth if you stay focused on that. We also want to look back at where we've been. So we had that Saturn Neptune reset. I didn't circle this in the chart, but that happened right here. And that's about a reinvention energy of self, a stopping, abandoning yourself kind of energy would be another way to look at that. We've had the Aries eclipses. We've had Uranus enter Gemini right here. We're just coming out of Mars Pluto square. And then we just have had years of this collective upheaval based on what's actually happened in the world, but also with Uranus having traveled through Taurus, the sign of reality, the sign of our earth and our world around us. Many people are exhausted. It's like beyond exhausted. Um, Many people are carrying grief, a lot of unresolved, unspoken grief in the collective. There's so much burnout, which is actually a physiological nervous system state. There's uncertainty, so much financial stress. There's health challenges that we're still coming through with that Taurus energy being shaken up. And then just the weight, like literally the weight of being human in both a rapidly changing world and a world where there's so much destruction and trauma happening on the collective level. And Taurus asks us to look up from that, to kind of pull our chins up and look how far we've come and look at where we're still headed. Like this, there's still a developmental process. There's still a turning, a rotation of the earth. There's a sunset coming after this, or a sunrise coming after the sunset. This is looking ahead in a soul way, not a self-improvement way, but like a deep soul calling kind of way. You are still here. Try to keep your heart open. You're still learning, you're still becoming, and that matters. This time, this full moon is a bridge to June's softer energies, lighter transit notes, and just the overall theme that there really is joy here too. We don't have to earn every beautiful moment through struggle. Sometimes the spiritual path is allowing ourselves to enjoy what we've already created or what's just already here around us, to appreciate how much healing has already happened, and to trust that we are strong enough to keep walking toward the future that is calling us. It's like we can finally lift our heads and see the horizon again. I want to just keep giving you that symbol of the horizon. So let's just talk about, in general, what a full moon is. It is always an opposition of the moon and the sun. So you see them across from each other in the chart here, if you're able to watch the video version of this podcast. So there's always two opposing energies. There's a Sagittarian energy and a Gemini energy. Gemini is air and Sagittarius is fire. And Gemini is sort of here now, this, that, two choices right in front of me energy. It's thinking energy. It's a quality of, it's a verbal connection energy. It's ideas, but like quickly in your head right now. And Sag is an expanse. It's looking out, it's traveling, it's looking forward, it's looking ahead, it's looking at the bigger picture. And so there's this kind of pull on this axis between what's here now to choose or to do or to think, and how can you step away from that and look out at that horizon line or get altitude on what you're looking at and thinking of. The lovely thing is that I find both of these signs to be pretty fairly optimistic, especially Sag. So there's a sense of hope, can be like we can breathe life into hope, is how I'm feeling this opposition between these two planets. A full moon is always a culmination in a lunar cycle that started 2 weeks ago with a new moon and or 6 months ago with a new moon in Sagittarius and or the 27-month lunar gestational cycle, which we'll get to in a second, but that started December 1st, 2024. So the full moon is a completion, it's a release, it's a graduation, it's a coming of age. It has a feeling of getting to a threshold where now we can move to the next thing. And so oftentimes that vibe is in the collective, but specific to your chart where it's happening, which we'll get to in a second too. Let me tell you a little bit about the other transiting aspects happening and the sort of cosmic texture. So really the pressure has shifted. Mars square Pluto last week was intense. Many people are still processing power struggles, a hard no, something that landed as just a stop in your tracks energy, exhaustion, boundary issues, nervous system activation. Pluto brings up fear, fear frequency, survival instincts. Old survival patterns could have kind of taken over like a little bit of a hijack in your system. Hopefully, you're doing the work to catch yourself in that and to come out of that, regulate yourself, trust and honor the fear, and then figure out what part's old and what part's present. The storm is passing, but the body remembers the storm. June is actually the first month in a long time where it's not dominated by a huge opening full moon. We've had that pattern for so long now, and this is the first time that May ends, it kind of closes with the full moon, and then we get this like fresh June energy. And it's just kind of a chill month as far as transits go, which we also haven't had in a while. And July is big, so it doesn't last long. It's kind of a quick, it's a quick pause, exhale, notice joy. Um, the sky, I feel like it's giving us space, like just some sweetness. It's breathing room, it's integration space, it's joy space. This is me in my flower garden. This is me loving my new honeybees. There's also, though, this kind of like nudging or like a tickle from the future is how I'm seeing it. Tickle comes to me. Gemini rules kids and young children and youth. Um, so there's like this directional tension. There's something that feels like it could get exciting. It's like not exciting yet, but you can kind of tell there's like a taste of it. It's it feels like a bit of a soul calling. I think there's like a destiny energy kind of coming like on that horizon line. There's also this rare, potent, super amazing mid-July energy of a minor grand trine between Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. And this is one of the biggest stories of the next several years. So we're already in this. I'll be talking about it more in future podcasts as we get closer to exactitude. Um, but this is beginning to form already. We're starting to be in this, and it's like a magic carpet in your chart wherever it's happening. I am going to be doing readings specific on the minor grand trine in your chart. If you like to grab one, it's in the show notes. This is going to be historic and consciousness changing. Like we might not get that as we live through it, but when we look back on this era, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20 years from now, we'll look back and see this as such a pivot time. New ideas, new identities, new possibilities, totally consciousness changing. Um, let's see what else. So another thing that happens that we're going to start to pick up on is the Mercury retrograde that's coming. It's not here yet, but we do start to feel the slowdown. As soon as Mercury hits its shadow point, which is going to happen on June 12th, just so at the tail end of this 2 week period of time that I'm covering here, that's when things kind of really, like you want to use the time for joy, but also use it to make some moves a little bit, like some soft moves, because it's going to be a little harder and clunkier once we start to get to that shadow period. Um, I want to say there's also the nodes are involved here. Uranus is squaring the nodes, which is a pretty big deal. The south and the north node, actually, I forgot I like put all these words on here. Look at me. I made a second slide. Here I'm showing you the places in the chart. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is to show you here is where the north node is. So the nodes move backwards. The north node is slowly moving out of Pisces. Later in the summer, it will actually move into Aquarius. And so as that's happening in the early degrees of Pisces and the south nodes in the early degrees of Virgo, we're having a grand cross. We're having squares between Uranus and somewhat it's like not tightly in orb, but I can just feel it, the pressure here with this full moon kind of coming into play across those early mutable degrees. So let's get your charts out and talk about where exactly to find this and how to work with these energies, like which kind of theme of energy is where. It's a very mutable time. So if you have energies in Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and Pisces, especially early degrees, let's just call it 0 to 13 for this kind of broad, quick overview of the chart. Anything in the first decan of the mutable signs, this is very personally working with you. So the 7 to 13 degree chunk of the mutable signs, that's where there's the expansion point and that horizon line energy I'm talking about. That's where you can look out and see what's coming. And that would include the squaring energies of Virgo and Pisces. If you have anything 7 to 13 degrees of Virgo or Pisces, that's being squared by this full moon energy. So that's very much checking in with you like a choice point, like a make a move here kind of energy. Whoops. There's also new perspective and downloads coming in that same area of your chart because of the sun working in that Gemini space, having just had its conjunction with Uranus recently and like kind of cracking us open to awakening new consciousness. We have a very lovely sweet spot coming. It's like not in this 2 week period of time, but like get ready for it. It's coming. With we have down here in the chart, Venus and Jupiter are going to be coming into a conjunction. I actually realized I should tell you that. Yeah, I'll get to it in the dates, but it's happening on June 9th. Since I said that, I'm like, mark that day. The sweet spot is June 9th. So that's happening at the tail end of Cancer. That's also going to be working with you then in a positive way in all the water signs, anywhere you have late degrees of Scorpio or Pisces or Cancer. It's going to just be holding you in like a cocoon of love and flowers, hopefully. Um, it's just like it's a chance. It's the two benefic planets getting together. So it's sort of like the odds are good for something hopeful, positive, supportive, nurturing, those kinds of energies. And if it's squaring or opposing something in any of the cardinal signs for you, the late degrees of Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, Aries, it's going to be asking you to really check in, especially because Chiron is at the tail end of Aries. There's like a checking in with your wound. Are you letting your core wound keep you from pleasure and joy? Are you letting your kind of self-absorption in your healing process keep you from pleasure and joy? Are you working like there's this like kind of old energy that's old paradigm that's dying out where we're like working so hard on our stuff. Like we're working hard to heal the self instead of just enjoying exactly like accepting and enjoying who we are, how we are, where we are. And that's the energy that the cosmos wants you to be working with and feeling right now. And really, going back to the mutable, this kind of grand cross mutable energy and those early degrees, this is your wake up call. It's like time to wake up and grow and shift and almost like lifting up and like the image I get is like someone just like you're like we're all in a little dollhouse or something, and someone just reaches in and picks us up where we are and plops us down in another place. Like it's kind of that kind of energy. Um, and it's squaring the nodes. So anytime there's any squaring of the nodes or just nodal activation happening in the cosmos, I always guide you to look back at your own North Node, which I'm happy to do a reading for you to help you understand that deeper. I love working with North Node energies because it's really your soul's path and guidance of what you've like the calling that's here, that's in your bones, like that kind of energy. I want to get to the dates so you can understand the when of this storyline. So Today, May 31st, early this morning, was the full moon in Sagittarius, 9 degrees, 55 minutes. And then at 6:32 p.m., Mercury in Gemini will sextile Chiron in Aries. This is again connecting back to that sort of, so I didn't really say this all the way, but Chiron in Aries has really been helping us focus since 2018 on self-responsibility for our own healing, getting our nervous system adjusted, being able to not react, to respond and not react, to understand ourself so that we're not blaming other people. Like that's kind of been the energy of Chiron moving through Aries. But at the tail end, what we get is the places that we've been maybe over focused on our own healing. Maybe we've set boundaries that are too firm. Like I think a lot about this era, there's been a lot of family estrangement and people setting boundaries in really extreme ways. And I think that there's going to be some softening of that and some healing that comes from that as the people who really needed to put a really strong protective shell around their boundaries and kind of do the healing inside, they can kind of come out of that timeline and actually reconnect. And that's going to be part of Chiron moving into Taurus, which is happening soon, is that um, the healing is actually in connection. The healing is in how are you resourced by where you are, who you're with, and how do you sustain yourself on your path. It's not like self energy is like it doesn't have like a place to go or like aware that it exists. And that's what's going to be the Chiron in Taurus energy. Anyhow, June 1st, so we start the month immediately, 5:55 a.m. with Mercury moving into Cancer. There is like a reparenting energy here in the healing way of looking at this transit that I feel like revisiting, there's almost like a forgiving energy toward childhood roots and ways that we may be kind of maturing through our healing process. Again, with this kind of Chiron finishing out Aries and moving into Taurus energy, there's like a maturing happening. And I think there's going to be like what's the word? Like a reclamation of the roots that might feel surprising to you because it's going to be a little different than I think how we've been connecting to our family of origins and the pain that we have from childhood. There's also this sort of like um, Mercury helps you understand what the pain from childhood is that you've been hanging on to, that you've been too either tribal or self-contained around. On June 3rd at 3:44 a.m., Mercury will trine the North Node. So this is going to give us more, this is happening at 3 degrees, just about. And that's going to give us more of an understanding of the kind of choice point energy of this sort of destiny karmic directional quality or this pull that feels like it's deeper in us. It's like lifetimes of energy kind of pushing us towards something. That same day, June 3rd at 6:18 p.m., Mercury is going to square Neptune, which just makes that whole thing a little bit more confusing, but maybe a little more spiritually aligned or like you might be able to read the energies more clearly because of Neptune being connected to Mercury there. But for a lot of people, that just comes off as anxiety and confusion. So it can kind of go in that direction. There's just shifting on June 3rd that could, like, it's a day to be grounded and aware of yourself and not make too many stories about things that feel anxiety producing because there's a lot of anxiety that day in the collective and it's not you. June 8th at 4 a.m., we have the last quarter moon in Pisces. If you get my planner, I actually call out the last quarter moon is pretty exciting because it's the tail end of the 27-month lunar gestational cycle. So something that you started over 2 years ago when we had a new moon in Pisces is going to be complete, resolved, integrated. It's like really neat to look back at those patterns. So you can kind of play with that. I have the first quarter moon and the full quarter moon all laid out in the planner, but you can just look up when was the new moon in Pisces in 2024 and look kind of around 2 weeks ahead, 2 weeks after that, and see what was happening for you then. And that can give you an idea. But wherever you have 17 degrees and 38 minutes of Pisces in your chart is a part of the chart that would have been starting something, initiating something new, making a shift, possibly in the Pisces idealism, creative, spiritual energies. On June 9th at 1:59 p.m., Venus conjoins Jupiter in Cancer at 25 degrees, 46 minutes. I already covered this a little bit. It's lovely. It's this purple circle here in your chart. So you look for Cancer and you find the tail end of it before we get to Leo. What house is that happening in for you? Really pay attention. Sometimes the good transits come and we forget to pay attention to them because we're always so focused on the harder, more difficult, more kind of in your face transits. But it would be a great day to even take the day off and just kind of let yourself wander, follow your bliss. June 12th at 1:20 a.m., the North Node will square Uranus at 2 degrees and 42 minutes. So this is where I was really talking about that check-in, that kind of grand cross kind of energy here. Um, it's more of a T square when we just put Uranus in Gemini and then look across at the nodes. And that same day is when, at 6:53 p.m., is when Mercury is going to enter the retrograde shadow. So that, and what it's about 26 degrees of Cancer, I think I said. So it's happening kind of where Venus was conjunct, well, definitely where Venus and Jupiter conjoined, which is also just it's kind of pulling us like I love actually that the Mercury retrograde is happening in Cancer and that it's happening in this pattern with the nodes being involved and with just having that beautiful Venus Jupiter nurturing support energy. It's like we can pull that support backwards with us through this retrograde time as we're reconsidering the parts of our chart where we have those Cancer energies. That same day, June 12th at 11:23 p.m., Venus will square Chiron at the very, very end, 29 degrees, 44 minutes of Aries. So again, we're still, when I talk about, when I do these podcasts, like in my own head, I'm like, I'm just saying the same thing over and over because that's how the energies are. It's like they'll give it to you any which way. So the same combinations of themes are here from different angles, depending on what kind of speaks to you or where it hits your chart. But again, we're talking about how is your wound keeping you from feeling good? How is your self absorption in your healing process keeping you from opening your heart? Like these are some kind of ways to combine these energies and ask yourself these questions. And again, just the cosmic energy right now for June wants you to be in a space of presence and pleasure and connection and sweetness and joy. June 13th at 4:46 a.m., Venus will enter Leo. So Venus actually loves being in Cancer. It's a little bit of a bittersweet threshold when she crosses into Leo, but she doesn't mind Leo. It's a bit of it's kind of adverse territory in that it's ruled by the sun. It's very masculine energy, and she's not always with the solar vibe. She kind of has a more lunar presence, but she doesn't mind carrying that feel good feeling into Leo season, which is about play. It's about the heart of summer. Everything you love about summer, that's literally Venus and Leo. Everything you love about summer. The next day, June 14th at 8:54 p.m. will be the new moon in Gemini. So this is kind of landing back down into the new moon, the darker night where we can sit with ourselves and our own energy, take in all that joy we've been experiencing, that slow down, maybe some horizon excitement energy also happening. And I think that that's where the new moon is going to kind of carry us into the next phase of the month of June is what is on the horizon and how can you start to make moves and get excited and work towards that. But it's going to be energetic and kind of psychic telepathic versus moves in reality. The earth isn't going to quite catch up to us, I don't think, until we get through the Mercury retrograde. But it's like here for us to start to harvest the energy. And we're going to be moving so fast into this minor grand trine by the time we get to the new moon in Gemini. So I'm sure I'll be talking all about that next time. So you can find me at Astrology Intuition on Substack, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Spotify. You can use the links in below in the show notes to set up a reading with me or to order one of my discounted recorded readings, which are going to be connected to the minor grand trine. I also have a Chiron reading available. It's really important to understand how your wound may be self-sabotaging as we move into this new Chiron era. And otherwise, I will see you on June 14th for the new moon in Gemini. Take care out there.